Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the absolute heart of a brilliant 5-day simulation called the Newsroom. We're going to explore source material showing how 5th graders are learning to navigate media literacy. But, not by reading some dusty textbook. No, they are literally dropped right into a ticking clock, high-stakes newsroom.
Right out of the gate, our source material reveals this fascinating, completely counterintuitive design principle that actually drives the whole curriculum. Quote, "The boring, well-sourced stories won, every time." It's a bold statement, right? The entire simulation is literally rigged so that the flashy, dramatic choices always fail, while the quiet, methodical ones absolutely triumph.
So this brings us to the core challenge. How do you actually teach a 5th grader to verify information and spot fake news? If you just lecture them about cognitive bias, they're going to fall fast asleep. So instead, this curriculum creates this incredibly immersive environment where they just have to live out the consequences of their own flawed thinking. Let's dive in and see exactly how it works. Section 1. The Anatomy of the Newsroom. In this English language arts simulation, teams of 3 to 4 students take over their school's online newspaper, the Spark City Tribune, and every single team starts out with identical, highly limited resources. We're talking 4 front-page slots, 6 reporter hours per day, 100 credibility points, and a tight $200 news budget. Instantly, these abstract editorial decisions are transformed into a high-stakes resource management game. Every single choice either builds trust or it burns it to the ground. Now, the crucial point here is how the students actually use these resources. They get specific roles, like editor-in-chief and reporter-manager, but the absolute spine of the simulation is the source checker. Before a team can even vote on publishing a story, the source checker has to read the pitch out loud and ask 3 absolutely vital questions. Who said it? Did they actually see it? And can we check it?
Next up, the boring choice wins.
Okay. Let's move over to day 1, where the kids are immediately tempted with the choice that perfectly proves the simulation's core philosophy. On one hand, we have a pitch about a park fire. Sounds super dramatic, right? But nobody was hurt, and it honestly has 0 lasting impact. On the other hand, there's a totally boring story about a change to the library hours from a named source, but it affects literally every single after-school student. So what do the students do? Well, most teams enthusiastically jump at the park fire pitch because, hey, fire sounds like breaking news. And they completely ignore the quiet, heavily sourced change to the library hours.
But then comes day 2, and the simulated reader feedback rolls in. The students who ran the park fire, they get a message saying, not much of a story. Meanwhile, the ones who chose the boring library hours actually get thanked for their reporting. And oh man, the teams that ran an unverified celebrity rumor, they get absolutely roasted with comments like, "Did you guys even check this?" The entire system structurally punishes that dramatic, shortcut reporting and completely rewards careful, boring verification.
Moving on to the anonymous tip. This beautifully sets the stage for day 3. This is the absolute climax of the simulation, where the tension gets dialed up to maximum. An anonymous, typed note just lands on the editorial desk with a massive, explosive scoop. The principal is canceling the end-of-year field trip to buy new computer lab laptops. It's packed with specific details, like mentions of a PTA meeting and budget reallocations. And to make matters so much worse, there's this rumor floating around that a rival student blog is supposedly trying to break this exact story right now.
To make it truly visceral, the teacher drops this number on them: 5. A visible 5-minute timer starts ticking down for the entire classroom, and the teacher completely refuses to extend it by even a single second.
So we have to ask, what do your students actually do? With time running out, the room erupting in chaos, and the fear of getting beat to the punch, they face a massive dilemma. Do they hold the story, spend precious reporter hours to investigate and risk being second, or do they just publish it immediately as breaking news and risk being totally wrong? The absolute genius of this test is actually hidden right here in the fine print at the very bottom of that anonymous note. It says, "I was not able to stay for the whole PTA meeting. I had to leave about 20 minutes in." If the kids are too rushed by that ticking timer and the dramatic headline to read all the way to the bottom of the page, they completely miss the fact that the tipster's information was totally incomplete. Which brings us to our next section: friction is the teacher. Let's jump to day 4 to see what happens next. This is when the consequences of that ticking clock come crashing down on the newsroom. The truth finally comes out. The field trip is definitely still happening, and the computer lab is actually funded by a state grant. Those 2 topics discussed at the PTA meeting,
They were entirely unrelated. So the teams that held the story and investigated, well, they kept their credibility intact. But the teams that rushed to publish, discover their massive scoop, was totally false.
And the penalty is severe. We're talking a brutal 17-point net credibility hit. They lose 20 whole points for publishing without verifying, which is only slightly offset by a tiny 3-point bump for doing the right thing and printing a retraction. Their Tribune Trust score just absolutely plummets.
And this brings us to a foundational rule for the educators running this whole thing. Friction is the teacher. The discomfort is the lesson. Do not rescue students from these moments. The curriculum explicitly instructs teachers not to soften this blow at all. Feeling the sting of that massive credibility hit is a critical, absolutely crucial part of developing productive failure recovery. Real newsrooms have to print corrections, and so must they.
At our final section, naming the traps.
Finally, we reach day 5. This is where the kids calculate their final scores and experience the grand paradigm-shifting reveal. This is actually the very first time the teacher formally names the cognitive biases they've been experiencing all week long. Because they lived through the failure firsthand, when the teacher defines the headline trap, the students instantly recognize it. They know exactly why they fell for that park fire pitch on day 1. Their brains just saw the word fire and made a snap judgment before they even bothered to check who it actually mattered to.
And they deeply, deeply understand this next one, the detail trap. They realize that the highly specific words used in the anonymous tip, words like budget and PTA, totally trick their brains into trusting the note, causing them to completely skip that crucial fine print at the bottom.
The teacher then formally goes on to name all the other psychological biases at play here, like the easy answer and the everyone knows problem. And honestly, this is so brilliantly designed, the teacher only names them after the students have already described their own flawed thinking out loud to the class. The discovery literally always comes first.
All of this maps directly to something called the patience framework. This awesome discovery-first pedagogy naturally develops really complex habits like emotional regulation, bouncing back from failure, and building adaptive strategy. The kids are building these crucial decision-making habits through structured failure, without ever once feeling like they are just reading some dry textbook about source credibility.
So the biggest takeaway we walk away with today is actually a pretty provocative question. As you reflect on how easily these 5th graders were tricked by an exciting headline or a rushed timer, you gotta wonder, if a 5-minute timer can trick an entire classroom, do adults fall into these exact same traps every single day on their own social media feeds? It's definitely something to think about the next time you feel the urge to hit share on a breaking headline. Thanks so much for exploring this amazing framework with me today.